for joining us this Thursday. Our topic today is going to be business owners' must-haves. So when you're looking at hiring a new IT company, what are the minimum items that you should be looking for when you're talking with IT companies and interviewing them? On this channel, we mostly try and help or educate business owners on the right decisions or the right items to look for when just working with IT companies. So I think this topic is going to fit in really well with what we mostly talk about. And we have Lance back with us today at UNI.
How's it going?
Introduce yourself, Lance.
Yeah, I'm Lance Keltner with UNI Computers. We're a managed IT provider in the greater Kansas City area, doing pretty much the same stuff that Chris does with WOLFGUARD. We align on a lot of things, so I'm really glad to be back.
Yeah, thank you, Lance. On today's topic, if you're a business owner, you have an IT company, maybe you're not thrilled with or happy with, internal or external, really. These are items that we've built, just a quick list on that we think everyone should be looking at, considering, or at least making talking points for you when you talk with these IT companies or people to hire. These are also items that I've found to mostly not be available with most IT companies. A lot of IT companies I find are not more mature IT companies. What I mean, they haven't been around, they haven't really learned, they haven't really set a standard themselves on how they should be, and they miss a lot of points. So these items can really help filter down the list pretty quick.
Right.
Yeah, and they might be great initially if they don't have these, but long term, you really got to have these to have a good, lasting, good relationship. I want to put you on the spot, Lance, but you want to start out with the first topic?
Sure. So one of the important things, and this has been made, I think, especially important since the pandemic hit. Now it's been, a year and a half when that kind of happened, and that's 24/7 support and having a network operations center. So what that means for the business owner is if you've had to send your employees home, or if you've had to go home, if you've had to work from different places at different times, business doesn't necessarily follow the 8 to 5 time schedule anymore. For some industries, it never did. But more and more, we're seeing people doing work whenever they can. And that means they're going to need support whenever they need it. And so that could be, 9, 10 at night. It could be crazy person doing something at 1 a.m. You never know, right? Maybe there's a deadline happening and stuff's got to happen. And then, Word freaks out, or the computer won't do something, or the print job's wrong, whatever. They need support, and they can't wait till 8:39 in the morning the next day to get into your ticket queue to then be handled. They need it done then. So it's important when they're looking, if you're looking for IT support, that you check that box, because you never know when you're going to need support. It always happens at the worst time, right? You can't schedule when the computer doesn't work. Just like you can't schedule when your car shows the check engine light. That would make it easy. So you got to have support when you got to have it, because the computer's there for you to execute business, whatever it is you do. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have it. So it needs to work when you need it to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of goes. Our little kind of side item too is the response time. A lot of IT companies that are just 8 to 5, they might be reaching out to you next business day sometimes.
Sure.
To actually help you. And so with 24/7, being quick to respond as well as being available when you need them.
Right.
We had a client that reached out to us because it was past 5 and they needed to run payroll that day, or staff aren't getting paid on time. And so it's kind of another example of they had a problem, didn't plan on having the problem, but they weren't even going to do it during business hours, and you got to get that stuff done.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the knock that you talked about is a great one too. The Network Operation Center, um, and that's like server alerts, internet goes down, hard drive failing. What are some other alerts?
Those are some of the big ones, but just having someone's not sitting in front of every computer and every server 24/7 with just looking at it, right? That would be impossible. So you have to have something in place that's reporting back to you when things aren't right, or even if they're just a little abnormal, because a lot of things that would happen like that are addressable on the front end and can make something that maybe the end user or the whole organization doesn't even notice yet, but then the IT provider can fix it before it becomes an issue and report on it and everything. But a lot of the times do that without impacting any business whatsoever. But if it's something more major, internet outage, server hard drive failing, something like that, usually internet outage, it's pretty obvious, but a server hard drive failing, if it's set up right, won't impact business immediately. But if it's left to fester, then the next hard drive in the server dies, and now we got big problems. So that's something that if you have that reporting in place, and your IT provider should have that, or you need a new one, then you can fix those problems usually without business interruption at a scheduled time that's convenient, so that things go back to normal. But if that reporting and that alerting is not in place, then you're setting yourself up for a bigger disaster down the road.
Yeah, we've taken over IT for clients, and one of our items to check during onboarding is backups. Do they have any backups? Are they working?
Yep.
And sometimes we'll see, a previous IT company has their backup software installed, and we open up the agent, and it's like, oh look, it's been failing for weeks, or a month. I mean, crazy. So and so we talked to the business owner about it, and they said, oh yeah, they're supposed to be receiving alerts. Like maybe they were, they're not watching them or doing anything.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But yeah, backups not working might not impact you right then, but when you need the backups, they need to be working.
It's gonna be a big problem then. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So an item I had on my list is all inclusive, pricing,
Right.
And especially if it's not, the contract is not all inclusive, and you're calling support after hours. Yeah. That could be time and a half or double the hourly rate, and it's going to be real costly real quick. And then what you're saying, hard drive failing, maybe you can't replace that hard drive in the middle of the office hours, because it might take the server down. And so being able to go on site after hours and have all that included.
Absolutely. To not have all-inclusive support, and when we say all-inclusive support, a lot of
no hourly rates, I guess.
Right. A lot of companies, and I'm sure Chris can attest to this, a lot of companies that we'll either take over for, or if we are talking to a prospect organization, they'll be looking at someone else as well at the same time, and we'll say, make sure there's no gotchas on that all-inclusive support, because a lot of times there are. I know that the way Chris and I both operate our businesses, all-inclusive means all-inclusive. There'll be no labor bills for anything that we do, period, done. Doesn't matter what we're doing. A lot of companies, they'll say, oh yeah, we're all inclusive, or they'll call it all you can eat, something like that, except for if we have to do this list of things, right? And that list of things is highly profitable for them. And so you have to
say it's all inclusive.
Right. So you really have to ask, is there, and this is a very important thing for anybody watching, if you're looking for an IT provider, it's very important you ask this question: when will I pay for labor? And if the answer is not never, then you need to go to the next guy, or the next IT company, because what that means is you're writing them a blank check for support, and you don't know what it's going to cost. Because anytime you're paying by the hour, you're paying them to be slower. You're paying for them to not do it right the first time. You're paying for them to train their techs on site, on your dime, and you're paying for them to try to make sure that you break. because that's the only time they make more money, right? So it's really important that you ask that question and that the answer is, you will never pay for an hour of my time. That has to be the answer. And I'd like to expand on that just a little bit, because we're finding a lot more now, and this has been kind of a trend that's been going forward. All-inclusive support, and I know Chris does this as well, needs to include items like, what can we do for your organization as an IT provider to help take you to the next level? What is the next level for you? How can technology make your business better? Not just so the IT provider can sell you something else, or another piece of software or something like that, or how can we make the technology that you already have, take Office 365 for example. There's a lot of stuff it can do, and most people are only using like 2% of it, like for just the email. That's all they're using, but it can do all this other stuff. But if you don't know, and if your IT provider doesn't know all this other stuff it can do and help you leverage that, well, there could be productivity that you're just missing, that you're paying for and you're not using. Maybe it can make your employees 10, 15, 20% more efficient in some job or several jobs that they do. That is, I believe, the IT provider's responsibility to do that and help you find those things. Most prospects I have talked to in the last, especially since COVID, but in the last year and a half, I will ask them those questions, and they're like, our IT provider never talked to us about that. They do our email, and they're never having to sit down with us to say, how can we help you be more profitable at the end of the year? I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. So I think that's another really important thing with all-inclusive support is your IT provider needs to be a consultant to help make your business better.
Yeah, kind of being that CIO exec for you, for your IT department, and then us reporting to the business owners, finding out what they're trying to accomplish, see if we can make it more efficient or do it better. But yeah, exactly, being that consultant or person that's involved in your company, not just saying, if something broke, okay, let me go fix it. Staying ahead of the game, really, too.
Yeah. They need to be on the same side of the table as you are. It needs to not be it's a transactional relationship. You have to pay them for services, right? But they need to be on the same side of the table as you, as trying to help your organization be better. And that fully all-inclusive support, and then the other piece I talked about, is the only way you get there, because then you take the time for money exchange is now no longer a thing.
Yeah. For some of our customers, one example is they had a office server, and we learned how the company is operating and working a lot remotely, and it was to their best interest to remove that office server out of the picture. It's something we were charging to manage, but take that out and instead have all those rules and processes and management done in 365, so that way it can communicate with all these remote computers. It can made it much more seamless, improve security. And it ended up being best for the client.
We've done the same thing and several times in the past year and a half. Actually saved the client money, because we're less stuff for us to manage, but that's less security holes, right? So it's a better security posture for the company as well, and it's the right thing to do for them. Where can we leverage your technology better? If we can reduce the amount of things like computers, servers that you need, we make less money, but it's better for you, right? And that's the goal. We want the best thing. We want the best thing in place all the time, whatever that is.
Yeah. Awesome. So the last item I had on my list is multi-layered security. And one of the last things that you want is, you talk to his IT company and they say, okay, price is this. And then you start and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, this is the price for antivirus, and this is the price for email security, and tacking on, all these other items. Include it.
Exactly.
What I believe is if, I want to be able to provide the level of service that you expect, and including, security. And I'm just going to include those security items I believe everybody should have in with my service to
exactly,
those expectations.
And to your point, exactly, we do the same thing. Security today, and really it's been this way since 2013, 2015-ish, when ransomware really kind of took off and went from being just a real simple thing to a much more nefarious kind of topic and thing that affected organizations. I still see too many providers. They come in and they'll install an antivirus and they'll say, "You're good," and it's like that was great 10 years ago. I mean, even coming up on 10 years ago, it was great 15 years ago. But today, that's a quick shortcut to getting compromised, to losing all your stuff, having generally a bad day. Both Chris and I take a multi-layer approach. You need more than just antivirus to keep the hen house safe, so to speak, from the foxes. And that goes for both the computer and server side, so what we call an endpoint, an actual physical device, as it does for the email. Email's number one threat vector now. It is the easiest to get in someone's inbox versus anything else. And if you can get that far, you're 99% of the way there. And so I know that both of us in the past year have really changed the email security that we use and stepped up that game because we've had to. The threats have gotten that much worse. I have sometimes when I look at an email and I do this all day, every day, right? And I'll look at an email and I'll look at it for 10 seconds and I can't tell it's bad. And it's like, that means it's really good. If it can, Chris and I both look at this all the time. We can spot the fakes a mile away. And I've had a couple that at first glance would have gotten by me, which means I need a security solution that's better than that, which we both have. But a lot of providers, they don't do that. They'll rely on, for instance, base Office 365 with no tuning, no nothing whatsoever, which is not good enough. Microsoft does not back up your stuff. That's something that almost nobody knows when I go to talk to them. Are you backing up your email? Oh no, Microsoft does that. I wish that was true, but they do not, and then they're blown away and they're like, oh my God, and it's like, yeah, you delete that email for 92 days, it's gone. See you later. You'll never get it back. And that really goes to show the level that various IT providers bring to the table of maturity. Back to your point you talked about at the beginning, a lot of them don't know, unfortunately, what a client or an organization needs to really be protected. And so they'll come in with these bargain basement prices, labor's not included, things like that. And they're saying the same things that Chris and I might say at the table. And so the prospect, they might not know any different, and it's hard for them to. But I hope what we're able to get across here today with this is that, security and picking an IT provider is not just which one's the lowest number. It's which one's actually checking off all the boxes that you need for your organization to make sure it's here tomorrow. Because the bad guys will do everything they can to make sure that's not the case, or to make sure they alleviate your bank account of a lot of funds before that's the case, and then they'll just do it again every 6 months. So it's really on you as the business owner or the decision maker to make sure that the IT provider you pick is doing the right stuff, and to ask those questions. You see something in the news that's like, some crazy new hack thing, ask your IT provider, are we covered from this? Are we good? And they should have an answer for you immediately that is either, yes, you're already good, or no, you weren't, but we have a fix that's going in place right now because nobody was good from this. If they're like, I don't know, let me figure it out, we call that a resume generating event. You need to start looking, because it means they are not on top of the game.
Yeah. And say you have some security in place. You should never rely on one item to protect you against 100% of threats out there.
Yep.
There's always going to be stuff that gets through one, maybe two, maybe even third, 3, 4 layers.
Yep.
But you have all those different layers, covered. So yeah, you're just not trusting a few of them.
Right. Exactly. Everything. Really important.
Yeah. And then at the end, comes down to the end user, if they can, that email actually makes it that far.
Right.
Do they have the knowledge to know that it's a fake email or spam phishing email, not clicking that link? But then even if they do, there's still more layers of security
Yep.
that can block that web page or block that download, or if the download even makes it to the computer, there's something else to block it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Nothing will, just as you said, nothing will protect you 100% by itself. But we don't care which layer stops it as long as one of them does, right?
Exactly.
That's the thing. And to that point, Chris and I both, we go through what's called the stack of products and services that we use to protect the client, multiple times a year, because things change. And sometimes we have to swap things out. This was doing great all last year. This year, for whatever reason, it is not cutting the mustard anymore, and we have to change gears. And we have the ability to do that, and we price our stuff accordingly so that we can get that done for the client. Because once again, that comes back to what's best for the client in this case. When we need to make a change, we make a change.
Yeah. Great information. Well, those were the only 3 items I had on my list. I don't know if you had any extra items.
No, I think that covers it, because I think I added at least one more to each anyway. So really, I think we had about 6 items today. So no, I think that's a great list for anyone that is talking to either a prospective IT vendor, or if you just had questions for your existing. If you haven't talked to them about this in a while, if they haven't brought up to you the things that we were talking about today, then this is a great conversation to put on the books to have with them, because they may already be doing it for you. They may be great, and they're just not communicating it to you, as they should, which, you need to get that communication from them. And then if you find out that they're just not doing this stuff, or they don't have an answer that, if the answer gives you some butterflies, you're like, I don't know about that, then that's when it's time to start looking.
Yeah, and there should be, a trust level with your IT company. If they're not telling you things, ask. Find out what, becomes you're hiring them.
Yeah,
so make sure
exactly.
they're up to par.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And at the end of the day, the organization is your responsibility. It's the business decision that you make. And the IT provider, that's just one of them. There's a ton of decisions you make all the time, but that is one of them that is crucially important to whether or not your business has staying power. This is the only thing where we see where you've got people out in the world that are actively trying to destroy you 24/7, and it's your IT provider that is charged with the responsibility of keeping that at bay, but you have to select the right one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a vendor that if they goof up, they're not doing something right. It's something that can actually shut your company down.
Yep, and both Chris and I have seen it more than once, and it's really sad to see, especially when there was nothing in place. We're coming in after the fact, cleaning up the mess, but there's no backups to restore from. We're kind of starting over to a degree. It's horrible, because the thing that we would love nothing more is to find some magic. Oh, here's this thing over here, and we got you back, right? That's happened, but that's rare, especially when things weren't right. But you still have to rebuild after if you can. So selecting the right IT provider first is crucially important to keeping that to having the highest chance of keeping that from happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Lance. Again, thanks for joining.
No problem. Anytime.
Yeah, we'll keep trying to keep everybody safe, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
See you later.